Welcome back as we continue our conversation with BBC broadcast journalist Katty Kay. Let's pick up where we left off. And you mentioned in the first segment that there's going to be a very important meeting between a number of different countries, China, Russia, United States, Iran, Israel also, I believe, tomorrow. And so give us a preview of what you expect to happen at that meeting. I know it's a big question, but give us your take.
Well, as one administration official put it to me just yesterday, if we get out of that meeting a second meeting, we've probably done a good job. I think we shouldn't have too high expectations for this meeting in Geneva. I think the rhetoric that we've heard after Iran the last few days, the fact that they launched a missile test on Monday, shows that they haven't gone into this meeting feeling cowed. They're not about to go in there and say, okay, fine, we're going to lay our cards on the table. You can come in and inspect whatever you like, we'll halt our nuclear program. Anyone that believes that is very misguided.
Wishful thinking.
Very wishful thinking. But I think it's going to be interesting to watch what the Russians and the Chinese do over the next few days, because although ever since the revelation of this site near Kuchem came out last Friday at the G20 meeting, the Russians and the Chinese have been making more conciliatory noises towards the West in terms of imposing sanctions on Iran than we had previously. But actually, when you look at both Russia and China's economic interests in Iran, I wonder just how far they're going to go in pushing sanctions that might actually have an impact. You know, Russia is the biggest arms trader to Iran. China imports a huge amount of oil and wants to carry on doing so from Iran. Both of those countries might be making the right noises now. I'm still not convinced.
But when they have to bite the bullet.
I'm still not convinced when it comes to that meeting at the Security Council to really get tough sanctions on Iran, whether you wouldn't see a veto from either China or Russia.
And so the question is, what will be the effectiveness of sanctions? Because there are already some sanctions that are placed on Iran right now, and they can get their materials from any of a number of non-Western sources that don't enforce the sanctions. And of course, Russia and China, they may not enforce the sanctions. And also, sanctions may not actually want them to quit the nuclear development because they have such a vested interest in promoting their national identity through development of nuclear technology. And so do you think that sanctions can actually work given all of these demerits?
No, you're right, Matt. There's a list of sanctions as long as my arm against Iran at the moment, and they don't seem to have had much impact so far, do they? And you know, part of it is that the population in Iran, which curiously is actually one of the most pro-Western countries in the Middle East in terms of its general population, the population definitely is supporting this nuclear program. And they say we have a right to move towards civilian nuclear technology and we shouldn't be prevented from doing that. I think that there are divided opinions on how effective sanctions can be. I think a sanction that really cut off Iran's oil exports to the world would be very effective. Are you going to get that? Given China's position on the Security Council, that's very unlikely.
No, they're gobbling up oil.
They are gobbling, as we all know, they are huge importers of oil, not just from Iran, but from wherever they can get it, frankly, at the moment. Their economy is still growing at 8% this year. That sounds pretty good by American terms, but that's using up an awful lot of fuel, I can tell you. And so I think that the thing about the sanctions is maybe what we have then is a unified international approach towards Iran that at least delays the production of a nuclear weapon. It might not stop it, but it might delay it. And I think that could then in turn pacify Israel for a while. And I think maybe that, I mean, this is what I think this man from the Security Council meant to me when he said, if we go into Geneva and we get one more meeting, then we consider that at least a success. This is a long, slow process. There are going to be no big steps taken, but if we can at least keep delaying, keep having the next meeting, then that is better than the alternative.
All right, you have probably about 30 seconds left, but psychologize with us for a minute. The answer might be obvious, but why do you think Iran wants to pursue nuclear weapons? Is it because they actually want to use them, or do they want to have them simply as a card that they can play, or is it national identity? What is it, do you think?
I think it's deterrence. And I don't think, in a way, perhaps we should get too fixated on the nuclear weapons. I think actually perhaps the ballistic missiles are what are more important. But I think they want the deterrence there so that if they feel that Israel were to strike, they'll be able to say, right, we can strike back.
Okay, well, we're out of time, and Katty Kay will join us again next week to share with us her unique perspective of Washington and American politics. Stay with us as Jackson 24/7 previews a local musical event that has become important to the community.